Hello and welcome to this first video in a series of 8 I'm going to make about the incident of the letter. I'm going to make them really short so that you can analyse each quotation or set of quotations in detail. So here's the first. It's the beginning of the chapter. Presently, after he sat on one side of his own hearth with Mr. Guest, his head clerk, upon the other, and midway between, at a nicely calculated distance from the fire, a bottle of a particular old wine that had long dwelt unsunned in the foundations of the house. So this is a really interesting description of Utterson, and Stevenson's purpose here is to bring out the hypocrisy of Victorian middle class and upper middle class men. So even that first sentence, he sat on one side while Guest sits upon the other, mimics the idea of duality, the duality of man. And that's something that's mimicked throughout the whole novel, because Stevenson is drumming into his readers that we all have this dual nature. We can disguise our evil nature, but it still remains there, hidden, just as Hyde is hidden before he's brought out into reality. Next, he wants to reveal Utterson's calculating personality. Now this is going to be really important because in this chapter, Utterson is going to break the law. He's actually going to become a criminal. You might not have spotted that when you first read it. And this is prepared for, foreshadowed, with a nicely calculated distance from the fire. And we're automatically asked to think that perhaps his calculation is not something that we would enjoy, because he's actually removed Mr. Guest and the wine a distance from the fire. Yes, that might be the perfect distance, so they're both just toasty, just right, but it also might be to waste the energy of the fire and they're not quite warm enough. So he introduces this level of doubt about Utterson's calculation. Next, we have a metaphor of his hidden passions, echoing the theme of Hyde, whose own passions are Jekyll's hidden passions. So let's have a look at it. Well, the wine is old. It's been kept away, hidden for a long time. Where? It's been kept in the foundations of his house, so underground. Again, this idea of something deeply hidden, and it has dwelt there a long time, and he uses this really interesting word to describe it. So not kept safe, but unsunned. Now we have a really negative description. It's being kept out of the light, which of course is another metaphor for evil. It's been kept unsunned, it's unnatural, which brings us back to that image of the fire, suggesting that his calculated distance from the fire is too far. It's uncomfortable and it's cold. And so suddenly we're not so trustful of Mr. Utterson. He becomes an unreliable person who perhaps we dislike. And then finally, we've got the metonymy of Utterson's possessions. So with metonymy, writers use what the character owns to represent them. So here, the wine represents how he keeps secrets, and he takes pleasure in that, just as you would take pleasure in drinking an old wine. But the foundations of his house work a little bit like the description of Jekyll's house, which you remember, I hope, is really glamorous and genteel on the front entrance, which Jekyll enters, which is, if you like, the hypocritical mask, the hypocritical facade, and then the real revelation is the back of the house, which is more rundown, which Hyde comes in and out of and reflects that dual nature of Jekyll. So 4 things you can clearly see at play here, and when you write about all 4 of them together, you'll clearly be on a grade 9, hitting all the assessment objectives. So look out for the next video on the next paragraph.